All right, welcome in. And if you're looking for a quick and easy method for tuning your snare drum, then you've clicked on the right video. But before we go on, remember to subscribe so that you can find me again next Tuesday for more tips on how to play the drums, how to tune the drums, how to have a career as a drummer, etc. I've taught well over 1,000 drum lessons to people just like you, and I can show you too. I'm Gabriel, and you're watching the YouTube channel of DrumTipTuesday.com. All right, so there's a couple different things that you need to know about tuning the drums. I'm going to try to do this as simple as possible without getting too distracted with too many different things. It's a lot of information here, but what it really comes down to is this. You just want to line up your head the way you want it. Get it seated on the head, seated on the drum. You want to then tune it evenly, and then you want to tune it appropriately. Seat it, even it up, appropriate application. Those are the three big things there. No matter where I go with this conversation, that's what you need to remember. And I'll say that again at the end if I can remember to do so. At any rate, when I say line it up, there's a certain vibe that everybody has with their drum. Any musician has with their instrument. When you're talking about the snare drum, a lot of guys obsess about where the logo goes. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with the sound. It just has to do with, like I said, vibe. How you feel about your drums. My vibe on a drum, I like my logo perpendicular to the snare bed. I like the throw off on my left hand. Don't ask me why, that's just me. I also lean my snare a little bit forward as I do play with my sticks in an old-fashioned way. So the left hand works better if you lean it slightly down into the opposite side. So I have my snare throw off here, right? Snares are running this way. Perpendicular to that is the logo right here. You can put it on there any way you want. I'm just telling you how I do it. Like I said, the throw off is there. And when I play quiet, I like to do two things. I like to, first of all, play with my hands out to opposite ends of the snare drum, kind of open up rather than kind of narrow down. A lot of people like to go forward on the drum. I like to play towards the outside edges and sort of broaden out as I get quieter. I feel more relaxed that way. I feel like that's more a gesture of piano, and that this is actually more intense. There's a body language thing there. Second thing is, I like to keep my beads above the snare bed, and I think a lot of people do. You know, when you play quieter, you want to keep your beads of the stick, the tips of the stick above the snares. So that's why I do that. And that's all I'm going to say about vibe, all right? Even tension. Where do you start with even tension? Well, a human being is only so strong. And if you have the same human being exerting their physical strength on the same lugs, it's going to start out even. Enter finger tension. You want these things finger tight, right? And you can just take your two fingers, start screwing them around, move the drum down pretty tight. Pretty tight there. When you're not trying to draw blood or anything, you're just getting this thing on here about as tight as you can with your fingers, all right? That's a good place to begin. Seating the head. Just press on the thing a little bit. Looks like CPR. Just making sure that the rim is firmly down on the head. The head's firmly down on the bearing edge of the drum. So you just do that. Maybe go around with your fingers a little bit more. Now you're only so strong, and it doesn't matter who you are. You're always you. You're always going to be just as strong on each lug as you can be, right? So now you have a good starting point, right? You have a great starting point. Now let's go from that starting point and start to tune it down with an actual drum key. You got to learn a pattern here. It's not very hard. You could go just around the drum, but I like this much better. And most guys do this sort of thing. You start on one lug, go to the opposite. You move over one from where you started. Just move around one, hit that one, go to the exact opposite of that one. Move over, the exact opposite. Move over, the exact opposite. Move over. Now here's the thing. You'll see drum heads, and I'm not sure what drum company it is. I think it's PDP. Nothing against them. I love them. I'm surrounded by 1, 2. I have 4 Pacific Percussion drums, DW company drums around me right now. So obviously I like them, nothing against them, but they do this thing on a drum head. They number them, which at first seems like a brilliant idea. Now this is just a little eccentricity of mine. You can do this numbering system and it'll totally work. They label, this is an 8-lug drum I'm working with, by the way. It's a what is this? Ludwig Acrolite. I think somebody asked me that in a comment about the previous video. I did a drum solo, I said Facing Your Fears, and I just used this Acrolite. A buddy of mine sold it to me, that's why I have this drum here. He watches these videos sometimes. Hi Sam, how you doing? In case you're watching. He gave it to me for a good deal, wouldn't even take any more money. I tried to offer it to him, but that's why I have this. And that's how you should shop for your drums. It's another vibe thing, What's the best snare drum? The best snare drum is the one that you like most for that application. Or if you're getting paid, whatever the producer or engineer or artist wants you to play for that situation. There's no right or no wrong. Anything will fit anywhere. Getting back to tuning. They number these things, all right? They'll put a big number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 8. Then you're supposed to go back to number 1. There's a little problem here, all right? If you're following the logic, this is the next one in the series, right? This is the next one, not this. Now watch what happens. You would go here, 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 here. It's not really bad. You go around it, no, you end up here. Then you do these 2 again. You do these 2 again, these 2 again, these 2 again. I see why they do that. But because of my obsession with the thing, I'm going to say that I need to go all the way around and not stop halfway and then go back to 1. Follow me on this? Check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But where's 9? There has to be a 9 because you have to go around it. You're doing you're doing each lug twice to get around once because there's that one that you started with. It has to go all the way around. You left off here, right? This is the next lug, here. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then where 16 would be, that's back to 1. That's just me. I know a lot of guys that do that. And while I'm talking about it, I could be doing it. See, here I am, boom, right there. I'm not going here, going here. Here's the next one, and it's opposite. Here's the next one, and it's opposite. Here's the next one, and it's opposite. Now, we're back to 1, which brings me to this. After you do that once or twice, use your ears, all right? Now, here's a little trick. People will take their drumstick, and I don't even, forgot to bring the drumstick. That's okay. Sounds kind of like this. It's hard to tune a drum, to get every lug in tune with itself when you're doing it with a drumstick or anything that's like, like this drum key here. Because drums are technically non-pitched, okay? They don't really have a pitch, which just means that the harmonic series is so rich and complicated that one pitch doesn't pop out very well. So when you're trying to tune each lug to fit the other one, keep the drum in tune with itself, if you're hearing the sound of the stick touching the head every time you do it, you can kind of get confused with that. I know you're going to say like, what's so confusing? That sounds like a t, and you're listening for the doom part, but like t and doom and, it's all together. And you can get around that by simply using your finger. Now, if you have a mallet, like every good professional drummer, you got a pair of mallets, something the real soft cymbal rolls or real soft playing on the toms or whatever. You don't really need that, all right? You can do that, and it's probably probably the best, but you can use your finger, right? This is actually pretty well tuned right away there. Maybe I'll lift it up off of this thing here. Right, so the only one lug I felt that was like a little bit less than all the others was that one right there. Tuning the bottom head, all right? It's gonna be a remarkably similar process, but I'm not gonna do it again. I showed you on the top there. We'll just flip the drum over and look at it as we're talking about it. It would be the same process with two, gonna do that because they're buzzing, right? It's a snare drum. Two cavits, right? First thing, the snares. You have to get them out of the way when you're tuning the drum, all right? I see people do this often. You don't have to completely untie all the strings or unscrew like the mylar strip that holds the snares to the snare strainer and the butt, what's called the butt plate, right? You can just leave the butt plate alone and you just unscrew the throw off and it'll come off of there without having to take it completely apart from the snare wire itself. That way you don't have to like figure out how to get that exactly, you know what I'm talking about, if you know, you know, how to get the snares exactly centered there again, and how that when you throw it off, they're far enough away from the bottom head so when you hit the top, they don't still kind of jingle against it, right? You can just take that off and then you unloosen every lug and then you just kind of flip the thing like a lid, right? This is like a lid. Replace the head, put it back, screw that back on. You don't have to redo the whole thing, right? So in the life of the drum, unless this wire or string or mylar breaks that's holding the snare things on there, you probably don't have to, or you want to change the snare wires, you probably don't have to undo that ever again, right? Second caveat, when you look at a snare drum, a lot of people don't seem to realize this, especially if it is a beginner to drums, and this is a course for drum tuning for beginners. There is something called a snare bed kind of carved, especially into wood drums. I've seen it kind of hinted at. I can't really see it so much on this drum. I didn't really take it off so that I can put it on a flat surface and see, but I don't see it as much here, but I know some of the wood drums around me here, this one here, I'm pretty sure that one there too, they have a snare bed carved into it. And you're gonna say, whoa, back up, how do I get even tension if this thing is dug lower, if the bearing edge is lower, which is what a snare bed is lower here and here than it is here and here, all right? You don't have to worry about that so much. I used to obsess about it. It's a very thin mylar head that goes across the bottom. I used to take a blow dryer, put it on real hot, tune or crank the snare drum head down, and then almost kind of melt it in there a little bit. I'll crank it down a little too tight, you know, make it so that it fit like a custom fit. And I felt at the time like that, you know, massaging it in there, made it more precise or whatever. I haven't done that in about 10 years. I haven't really noticed a difference. So the way you deal with that is that you just tune it the same way that you did, and you're gonna notice it might be a little bit lower here. Of course, the bottom head is so thin and it's usually so high, you know, you don't really, you know, you hardly notice a difference at all. And I believe that whole thing to be pretty inconsequential at this point. But before we go on, I have a question for you. I always like to know what kind of gear people are using out there, as long as it's a video about gear. Comment below, what's your favorite type of drum head? You can see I have a bunch of them around me here. I'm not so curious about me, I'm curious about you. Comment below, no wrong answer. Favorite drum heads. Last step. You're going to want to get this thing in the appropriate range. Now, what do I mean by putting your drum in the appropriate range? Well, there's a couple things to consider there. First of all is the shell material of the drum and the music that you're playing. If you're playing something that's kind of fast, and there's no wrong way to do this, all right? You know, like I said in the beginning, the best drum for the situation is the one that either you like or the artist likes or producer, engineer, whoever you're working with. If they're paying, you're playing, right? So it's whatever they want. In this case, it's my studio, it's whatever I want. This acrylite made of aluminum tunes nice low. I've tried to tune it really high, experimented with different tunings. It doesn't work. It's not pleasing to me. Some people might like to crank it up and hear what it sounds like. It's made of aluminum. It has 8 lugs, and the rims are like a standard, I'm going to call that a flange head. It's kind of low mass, you know, and so it sounds better to me tuned low. Another example of that is going to be birch. You got birch wood here, right? Another 8-lug drum. There's low tension. Another DW design here. Low tension on the wood because it runs vertical on the inside, the inner ply. It's vertical, runs vertical. So there's not as much tension from bending the wood as if the plies were like this. They're like this so they can ply to the bend more. At any rate, I like that one tuned low. Other drums, well, bronze, same thing. It's another reason I have that here. Bronze, tunes nicer, lower, in my opinion. Now, full range drums. You got your maple, got your brass, all right? Maple, it seems like you can do whatever with it. Also, there's different depths, right? I like 5x14. I'm not a big fan of anything that's bigger than 5.5, you know, 5.5 or whatever. A lot of people make their careers on drums that are 5.5 or greater. All right, that's also a factor. But for me, 5x14. Brass then. I say that for last because that's your all-purpose drum. All right, that's the one. You could tune it low, you could tune it high, you could put this kind of head, that kind of head. It seems like you can do anything with it. If you have the choice to get one drum, I'd get a 5x14-inch brass. And one more thing before we go back to the drums and listen to this drum heads. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. I don't even know if this is a thing anymore. There seems to be a superior coated head out there. I know that a long time ago, a buddy of mine, John, he owned a drum shop in Pittsburgh. He showed us all this thing where it kind of would choose a drum head, and it was all the same drum head manufacturer, the same brand. He'd take a head, kind of bend it, crack it, hear the glue crack. He's like, it sounds like a good one, you know, and he'd scratch it, the corner, to see if it was either a clear head with a coating on it, or a white drum head, or mostly opaque drum head. The ones that already have a pigment to them, before they put the coating on, tend to sound best, all right? They tend to be more durable, in my opinion, and of a higher quality. This one here, this is kind of like an off-brand, I think it's like a generic head that someone just put Ludwig on. I'm not even sure if this is a Ludwig drum head, because ordinarily what they'll say also is like, you know, made for Remo by Ludwig, or made for, and I was reminded of this recently when I had a Sonar drum head, and it said Remo made for Sonar, and I scratched it, had the white head, and I knew already because I could feel it felt more sturdy, it just felt better, and then obviously I scratch this one and it's clear. Take for that what you will. That's a couple of different tips about how to tune it and some other things about drum heads and drums that maybe you didn't know. Let's go listen to this old acrylite on the drums. I know we're talking about drum tuning today, but if you'd like to get a book on how to develop superior hand technique on snare drum and drum set, just click the link in the description of this video to get Hands, my free ebook that contains the best 3 exercises for developing superior hand technique. And as always, remember to like, subscribe, and watch one of these videos next.